Hello, everyone. My name is Richa Patwa. I am a senior. It's completed my capstone project this semester through the University of Michigan College of Engineering. I'm majoring in industrial and operations engineering. My capstone is called Take Better Care of Your Health, and I completed it through the mentorship of Professor Jesse Yang. This is a little agenda of what we will be going over today. We'll start with my project motivation, then go on to the objectives, then the overall process that I went through, my user research, the storyboarding and prototyping that I came up with, and then my final results. As for project motivation, mental health has always been something that was important for me since my freshman year of college. My freshman year, I was faced with a lot of confusion on who I was, what I wanted to major in, what kind of things I wanted to be involved in, and felt a lot of that imposter syndrome in terms of the College of Engineering. Being a senior now, reflecting back to my freshman year, I can definitely say that there was a lot of the stress that came from outside factors, things that I just mentioned. There was not a lot of things that I knew how to take care of and like resources to kind of navigate through that. I saw that a lot of my friends and peers had similar experiences. So learning all of this, I knew that I wasn't alone in this, but it was just something that was not obviously talked about a lot. Moving on to some of the classes that I took that helped motivate this project. In fall of 2020, I took IOE 491, which is called Special Topics IOE. This class kind of focused on designing UI, UX, and app development in terms of how to design apps for the user and what kind of process you go through to ensure that you are captivating everything that the user kind of wants. Winter of 2020, I took EECS 493, which is called User Interface Development. This class kind of taught me about user interface, again, app development, and how you can capture the eye of a user and to make sure that you're making the app for the user. So these classes were really interesting to me. I liked the idea of how I could be creative in terms of what I developed, and then also enjoyed learning about how these like user interface people kind of go through different things to make sure that the apps that we use day to day, the web applications, things like that, are made for the users. And then lastly, social media. So I knew that I wanted to make something that for a user and make something that was surrounded by mental health, but I wasn't sure what. So social media, I understood that that played a large role in our generation, and it really helped. It was just something that was easy for college students, but sometimes it is in a negative connotation. So I wanted to create something that replicated the social media presence, but in more of a positive feed. So through all of this, I came up with wanting to design a health app made for college students. So, as for objectives, starting out the problem, so College Stats conducted a survey that conducted that 50% of students rated their mental health below average or poor. So, that's one in every two students would say that their mental health is not at the best that it could be. And this is obviously a big issue, and I think that it's not addressed as much as it needs to be, considering that that stat is really high. So then moving on to some details, the most common mental health issues amongst college students are anxiety disorders, depression, suicide, eating disorders, and ADHD. That goes in order of most common to least common. Suicide is not diagnosed as a mental health problem, but it is a leading cause of young adults, and oftentimes it does root from some of these other problems that students may have. And then to the impact, a lot of college students know that these mental health problems lead to drug abuse and alcohol usage to the extreme for a lot of students. They use this as a getaway in terms of not knowing how to kind of work around these things else how so they kind of move to drugs and alcohol to help them through this. So through this, I came up with four main steps that I wanted to go through to complete this capstone project. So I started out with user research. I sent out surveys to college students and then conducted interviews of four students from that also filled out that survey that I thought were of different backgrounds and would help kind of lead the way for this project. I then went on to a whiteboarding session. So this, I categorized different findings from internet research, user research, and surveys, and I found the main pain points of like what the users would kind of want to focus on in terms of the app that they're using. Then I went on to storyboarding. So here I created an initial prototype with the information that I collected from those first two steps. And then after that, I got some feedback and then conducted the final prototype. So as for user research and results, I started out with online research. So that was some of the stats that I was mentioning earlier in terms of the objectives. I understood general statistics, the common mental health issues, and then the general impact that people wanted to make. I then went on to the surveys and interviews, like I mentioned. So I sent out general surveys, which asked some similar questions of like, how is your mental health from when you started college to now? What kind of things do you use right now to help? What would you like to see? And I tried to interview college students of all ages and different majors. From here, I also asked them things that they would like to see in an application that surrounded something like what I was trying to create. So, right here is a list of some of the main things that the interviewers told me. So, they wanted to see a suggestion on a morning routine, suggestions on things to do, a way to keep themselves motivated throughout the day, something that kept track of their progress throughout the day, something that was personalized for them, track their habits, and was interactive. So from all of this, I conducted some whiteboarding. So here I categorized four main pain points of what the user would like to see. So it started out with the routine, the motivation, resources, and then personalization. So as for routine, they were interested in how to make time into their schedule, how they could keep up a routine, and how they could make time for this and school. Motivation, just how to keep yourself motivated throughout. You obviously won't see results right away, but how to just keep going and keep yourself accountable. Resources. This was like a big thing in terms of students not being able to find resources sometimes and not having resources that are like made for them specifically. So that leads into the personalization of where other apps are very general. They're just for every person out there, not like specifically for the stressors that a lot of college students face. So they wanted something that was made just for them and would help like them specifically. So this leads me to my initial prototype. So I drew out some sketches of what I wanted the design of the app to look like. So I started out with this homepage over here. It would just have like a login registration that would take you to the two different pages based on which one you clicked. Then you would have this preferences page. So here you would be asked what your goals are, what you kind of already do, and what you changes you want to make in the future. This would then like kind of help the app develop like what your to-do list would be. So then you would get a notification setting and then that to-do list. So that would be what the app generates of like what it wants you to do throughout the day based on your preferences. And then you have this tree. So this tree, each branch is kind of like different common things that the app would kind of tell you to do. So journaling, meditation, exercising, going outside. And then each of those leaves are just different minutes of how much time you completed in terms of each of those. This next page is a links page. So here you would get extra resources if you wanted to do more than what was kind of on your to-do list. And then finally, you have your profile. So this is just normal settings page if you needed to change anything in terms of your profile. So from here, I conducted an expert review with two experts using Nielsen's usability heuristics. I learned about these in both of those classes that I was mentioning earlier, and I thought that it was a good way to kind of figure out where my prototype was lacking in order to build the final prototype. I was expert review number one, and then expert review number two was a friend of mine who was familiar with these heuristics and was willing to help. So and then I averaged the two scores, and it is important to note that these scores are out of five. So five being the best, one being the worst. So the blue ones that I highlighted on the right were kind of the main areas that I wanted to focus on, as those were kind of lower than the other ones. So starting with visibility of system status, and then consistency, and then help and documentation, those all kind of tied together in terms of the users, me and her just noticed that users didn't really know where they were in the app. There was nothing that would like navigate them to different pages if they wanted to go back and forth. And they just didn't know how to like where they were and like where they could go next and like what the other options were. So that was important. Aesthetic and minimalistic design. I obviously didn't draw any of the like fancy stuff onto the storyboarding. So that's why that one was low. And then the help users diagnose, recognize, and recover from errors. There was a lot of like, there wasn't a lot of error proofing in terms of the app. You could like go to another page and then like not know how to go back. And then like if you messed up some of your preferences or something, there wasn't way to recover from errors. So these were kind of the main areas that I wanted to focus on from here. And then also, I just asked some of the other interviewees for some general feedback, not in terms of those usability heuristics, just like in general. So these 5 points were like the 5 that I focused the most on in terms of building that prototype. So the first one, like what I was mentioning, I wanted more navigation between the different pages, and that's what the users also reflected. They just wanted to know where they were and how to get back to other pages. Secondly, they wanted more specific questions in terms of preferences rather than just the open-ended questions that were there. Because this app was kind of made like strictly for them, they wanted to make sure that the app was capturing everything the right way. With open-ended questions, it's sometimes hard to miss out on some of the details. So if you have more specific questions, they were like, it'll just be easier. Next, just in terms of motivation, they wanted something that would like remind them of why they're doing it for themselves. So something different than a username, but maybe like their reminder. And then also just more motivation throughout. They noticed that you can't see that tree that's supposed to like grow on every page, but like if you're not seeing it, sometimes you might not be motivated to do anything. So just keeping up that motivation throughout the whole app, not just on that tree page. And then lastly, they wanted to be able to connect with people similar to a social media platform, just because that's how it was kind of presented to them. And they were like, there's no like social media like aspect to it. So they did want to connect with friends because some of them said that that would also help them keep them motivated. So from there, I was able to create my final prototype. So from here, I created my final prototype. I used an app called Figma. That's just kind of helps you like create like what the app or the page would look like, and then helps you navigate. So like as if you are the user, and it'll help you like navigate to the different pages. So let's say you started out, you would click your login page as if you are a existing user, you would enter your information and then your password. And then if you are not an existing user, you would click the register page. This would take you to enter your email, a password that you want to use for yourself. And then instead of that username, I included a mantra. So this was just something that would like help keep yourself motivated and like why you joined and why you wanted to keep going. Then you would go to your preferences page. So this is similar to that one, but it has more specific questions rather than the open-ended questions that were present in that storyboarding. So you would be asked what you want to do more of, how long you take care of your health right now, how long you would like to in the future in terms of hours per week, both of those questions. And then here you would just represent if you're a student, professional. I know I said that I wanted this to be for just college students, but I realize that there's a lot of young professionals out there that could also benefit from this. And then male or female, none of these preferences really change anything for the app. It's just for your own like profile and settings. And then you start your journey. Here is that notifications page, just more elaborated. So it explains to you how the app works. It explains to you that you would want to have notifications sent to your phone, as that would help remind you and keep you motivated. It wouldn't be a lot, just once in the morning and once towards the end of the night if you have not finished your tasks. And then this tells you about your wellness tree and how you would make it grow. And then it tells you about your to do list that you are going to get and how you can input your own to do list into that. So then you would get your to-do list. This top area is what the app would give you based on your preferences and the goals that you have for yourself. So it like this person was asked to meditate for 10 minutes on this day. If they don't know how to do that by themselves, this would link to a video of just some guided meditation that they could do for 10 minutes. Same goes for the exercising, journaling. Talking to a family or friend doesn't have a link because that's just kind of something that you could do on your own. And then this add more was something that I added from some user feedback. They wanted to be able to have a lot, like all their to-do list in one area, so like they don't forget about like school. So here you could add in like homework that you had to finish, a research meeting if you had one, just to remind yourself. And then before you delete it or check it off, you would have to enter the time so that you could help build that tree. And then here you would just click to add another task. This was kind of put in there to increase the motivation throughout all of the different pages. And then this bottom bar was put in there to help navigate between the different pages. So now Once you're at your to-do list, if you want to go to your tree, this is your tree. So it has the talking to family and friends, it has journaling, meditation, going outside, exercising, eating well. And then each of these have different leaves in terms of like how much time you spent on it during that week. And then hopefully by the end of the week, by the end of the month, you would have a full tree with a lot of leaves and a lot of numbers. And it would just kind of help motivate you to remind you that you have built this tree. Here, if you click this, it just goes back. And then you could also go to this do more page. So this was similar to the do more that I had in my storyboarding in terms of just more links in terms of if you wanted to do more journaling, more meditating, more exercising, and then general links that would just change throughout based on the current events that are kind of going on, and then just general tips that would change just to help you motivate yourself in terms of other things as well. And then you could go to your profile. This would just be like a picture if you wanted to add one, if you needed to change any of your password, birthday, phone number, if you wanted to ever change your mantra. Um, Here you could click to change your goals and preferences. So let's say like you have a busier semester and you just can't spend as much time, but you still want to. You could change the hours per week, and the app would kind of work itself around that. And that's just some general settings in terms of like the administrations page. And then the last thing right here is connecting with friends. So if you click that, it goes to your friends feed. Here you would just kind of see what your friends are up to. So Kai was journaling for 10 minutes today and he went on a walk with friends. You could just continuously refresh this and it would just pop up with what your friends were up to. I didn't make that a thing down here just because I didn't want people to constantly go there and compare themselves. So I made it a little bit hard to find through like your profile and then going here. But it's still there for those that kind of felt that it would be necessary for them. So that was my final prototype, what I came up with after all of those steps and the feedback that I received. So the overall learning from my capstone project, there was definitely a lot. First, I noticed how important mental health is for every college student, and it needs to just be addressed more. I knew this was a thing, but after learning about some of the stats, it just became more apparent to me. Secondly, was the process. Through the whole capstone process, I learned how things in a lot of my different classes can come together, and then something that I'm interested in as well can all come together to create something that I was proud of. Next, the interaction with others, interviewing, asking others some of those hard questions and getting feedback taught me a lot. This is obviously a topic that is like not addressed a lot and therefore it's hard to talk about sometimes, but I felt as if like I did need to ask some of those questions just to ensure that I was creating something that was going to be useful for those users. As for next steps, if I had all the time in the world, all the knowledge in the world, I would love to develop the back end of this app. However, with the time constraint and just my knowledge of not being able to do that, that would be the next step that I would want to do, just develop the back end, make it a functional app for people to use. But I thank you for your time, and I had a lot of fun doing this, and I thank you guys for listening.